If there's something that we need to, that's one. But just Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the candidates from Norton now. We'll go ahead and start with Mayor Zita. If you'd like to open with your opening statement, 5 minutes or so, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone here this evening and thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. I have never considered myself to be a professional politician, but just a guy who has a great passion for the city of Norton. I have served the city of Norton in a variety of areas for about 25 years. First on the fire department, next on city council, and now I am completing my first term as mayor of the city of Norton. As mayor and an 8-year councilman, I have built relationships with civic organizations as well as other state and local elected officials to put regionalism into action. Shortly after becoming mayor, the Southwest Summit Council of Governments was formed to consolidate dispatch services for Norton, Copley, and Barberton. I was named president of the governing board, a position that I have held since it began. This venture was met with immediate success in the form of reducing cost and increasing government efficiency. Recently, we expanded this to include joint IT services for the same communities. It is my hope to continue to pursue other joint ventures that will allow us to reduce cost and still provide great service to our residents. Financially, we are still feeling the effects of losing 50% of local government funding from the state of Ohio, but we are staying fiscally aware and responsible. The city of Norton recently underwent its bi-yearly bond rating by Fitch and received an A+ rating on our $6.7 million general obligations, as well as an outlook rating as stable. Additionally, the city received a clean audit report by the Auditor of State during their annual audit of the city's financial statements. For the past 3 years, the city has been awarded the GFOA Excellence in Financial Reporting Award. We established an improved budget process for fiscal year 2015, which allowed the department manager to have better ownership and also required them to be more accountable for their departmental expenses. The city ended fiscal year 2014 under budget and expects the same for 2015. As a former firefighter, I have the utmost respect for our safety forces, and I pledge to continue to improve and strengthen our police and fire departments. Our fire department was restructured this past year. 8 more full-time firefighters were hired, along with an assistant chief, which is already showing us additional dollars in overtime costs and provide better service. Using grants funding, the city was able to purchase a new fire truck valued at $375,000 at a cost of just under $20,000. Our police department was among the first in Summit County to purchase and implement body cameras. These body cameras were also purchased with grant funding. Economic development is imperative to growing the city's income tax base to help pay the cost of services for our residents. We hired a professional economic development consultant to create economic development programs for the city, and we are already seeing an improvement. The Community Reinvestment Area was just created to assist with bringing business to our community by allowing us to offer incentives which are needed to compete with other communities. Shortly after becoming mayor, Mayor Judge and I began discussing forming a watershed conservancy district. Both our communities, along with Copley Township, have been working together to address flooding issues shared by all. Civic organizations are a great part of our community. Shortly after I became mayor, I met with Norton Kiwanis and with their help was able to rebuild a pavilion at Columbia Woods Park. Along with the gazebo, a playground, tennis and basketball courts, and baseball fields, the park is something that we can be proud of. Additionally, we continue to partner with other civic organizations to provide community events like the Cider Festival, Easter egg hunts, car shows, the Holiday Tree Festival, and Safety Town. All of these things add quality of life to our city. However, there is still much work to be done. Road projects, promoting more economic development, expanding infrastructure to attract commercial development that will strengthen our tax base, and continue to work towards addressing the flooding issues in our community. I will be on the ballot on Tuesday, November 3rd, and I'm asking the residents for their support to allow me to continue to serve in this great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Zita. Mr. Rodgers, if you want to go ahead with your opening statement.
Thank you. To begin, I would like to thank the Barberton Herald for having this event and to thank all of you for coming out this evening. A bit about me personally. My wife Susan and I have lived in Norton for over 30 years. We have 6 children, 15 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. I retired from the Akron Fire Department at the rank of lieutenant in 1997 after serving 25 years in service. My last few years there, I served provisionally as a battalion commander. I currently own and operate Rodgers Home Improvements and have done so for the past 40 years. I have served as Ward 1 Councilman and Norton City Council President for the past 18 months. And as you all know, I'm running for mayor of our city. Since being elected to council in 2013, I have led the way on many issues that have benefited both residents and businesses in our community. Right after the election in November of 2013, I reached out to the Summit County Department of Environmental Services to begin a dialogue that eventually led to discussions with them and the city of Barberton regarding the establishment of a sewer provider for the city of Norton. Although admittingly these talks appear stalled at this point, I am confident we will continue to work for a positive outcome for both communities. In January, after being sworn in, I met with Mayor Zita for the first time, and he shared his inability, not through his fault, but to find a qualified person to fill the position of administrative officer. The applicants just weren't acceptable to him and those making that decision. At that time, I suggested he contact former Cuyahoga Falls Mayor Don Robart to ask if he might be interested in a position on a temporary basis. This discussion eventually led to Norton hiring Valerie Carr, who had worked for Mayor Robart. In the first month, I also looked at our need for a definitive road program, as the previous council had not planned one for 2014. In fact, there wasn't one in 2013 either. With my lead, council passed a road program for 2014 and found an additional $100,000 in funding. We went on to plan and fund the 2015 road program and passed legislation to have a road analysis performed for our city. Armed with the results of this study, we will now be able to tackle the repairs, rebuilding, and ongoing maintenance of this important part of Norton's infrastructure. In February of 2014, I requested a meeting with the EPA to discuss the Nash Heights Sewer project in an attempt to make it more affordable for our residents. Results of that meeting have allowed the City of Norton to look at an alternative vacuum sewer system that greatly reduces the build cost, which will potentially save the residents of Nash Heights and the residents of our city a considerable amount of money. We are now refining the design of this system and will bid out both gravity and vacuum systems to provide to determine which will provide the greatest savings. The council, which I led as president, passed legislation to purchase new equipment for the service department, which they had needed for over a year. We also pushed for increased staffing in that department, and were able to increase the level of personnel there. Additionally, we insisted on a replacement program for our police cruisers and found a way to partially fund them by keeping monies collected from a towing fee in the police department budget. And speaking of budgets, this council in 2014 insisted on department heads putting forward their own department budgets and being held accountable for maintaining them. I have also been addressing the flooding issues we have here in Norton that affect both our residents and businesses. We have a business owner who, at his own expense, had to build a dike around his property to protect their buildings and grounds from flooding. That is not acceptable. Mayor Zita and I were invited by one of our local businesses to a roundtable discussion concerning this problem. To my dismay, I was informed this problem had been going on since 2004. As I left the meeting, I remembered hearing that Copley was addressing some of these concerns in what is known as the Little Farms area, and I called a Copley trustee and asked if Norton and Barberton might join in on that venture. Now, this is aside from the larger watershed project that we are currently involved in. This led to 3 communities working together to solve some of the flooding issues. We are meeting on an ongoing basis, trying to get design and ideas together to prevent the flooding from coming out of the Little Farms area and going into Norton and Barberton and causing the problems that we have there now. Another flooding issue in our city is caused by stormwater runoff, which is affecting homes and businesses in multiple areas of our city, resulting in thousands of dollars of loss. We must work to keep our ditches and culverts free from debris to avoid these losses. In closing, I am running to improve the quality of life for all of our residents and businesses. We owe them the basic needs of safe roads, stormwater control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodgers. We'll start with Mayor Zita, our first reader question. Road repairs and sewers seem to be 2 of the top issues on the minds of Norton residents. If you're a re-elected mayor, what forward strides do you foresee in these 2 issues over the next 4 years under your leadership?
Thank you. We're going to look at continually trying to improve roads. I know that Rick just said that in 2012 and 2013, 2014, we did not have a road program. We didn't have road programs that actually went through the county as a county program. However, in 2012, we spent $307,000. In 2013, we spent $350,000. In 2014, $442,000. So we, in fact, it was a little bit different on how we did that, but we did not go through the county program, but we did have road programs. So, but we'll continue to build on that. Like I said, it's a working relationship between City Council and administration. We need to continue to look for ways to cooperatively find monies and use the monies that we have then to leverage.
Thank you, Mayor Zita. Mr. Rodgers, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Road repairs and sewers seem to be 2 of the top issues on the minds of Norton residents. If you are elected mayor, what forward strides do you foresee in these 2 issues over the next 4 years under your leadership?
Okay, first let me correct the record if I can. I did not go back to 2012. I mentioned 2013. And when we were seated, we looked at the budget for 2013, and although it was funded, it was never spent. And when asked if that money would be carried over, it wasn't. As far as the road program in Norton, we've had a study done. The results will be made public September 8th at our work session. And I believe we're going to find out that we are going to have a pretty expensive project before us to get our roads in the condition they need to be in. There was a recent study done in Akron, and the results of that 50% of their roads were bad, needing rebuilt. The rest of them were in as bad a shape, and they attached the cost to the residents of having bad roads in their community. It was $800 a year in cost to the people living in Akron because of the condition of the roads and car repairs and so on and so forth. So we need to be aggressive in addressing this. We need to find the funds to get the roads work done and immediately begin. As far as sewers go, right now we have the Nash Heights project before us. I'll tell you now, I am not a believer of spending tax dollars and laying pipe in the ground hoping for future development. When there is development in place or a developer comes, we will work with that developer to get the services he needs. As far as Nash Heights go, we are working on, we're looking at 2 different systems. Whichever one is functional, practical, and saves the city the most money, I believe we should go with. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stay with you, Mr. Rodgers, on our next reader question. Do you have any ideas that might help residents become more involved in the community?
Well, whenever I talk to a resident, and especially the younger ones, I ask them to get involved. You know, we need fresh ideas. Mr. Floor running for Barberton, and I heard him say that, fresh ideas. Somebody else said that tonight. That's what we need. So I would encourage anybody that has an interest to step forward. I've asked for, when we were first elected, that we might have some citizen advisors on our committees. Now, granted, we haven't been very successful with our committee makeup and meetings, but I strongly encourage any resident that has any ideas to come forth and help the city as we move forward.
Thank you. Mayor Zita, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Do you have any ideas that might help residents become more involved in the community?
Yes. Basically, we have different groups of citizens that join different boards that we establish here in the city, whether it's a planning commission, that's boards and commissions is what they call them. And between planning commission and different groups, organizations come together. They're advisory groups that come together and discuss issues, discuss problems, bring suggestions to the administration, allow us an opportunity then to work with them, look for ways to solve some of the issues. But like I said, and I agree with Rick, we have to get more people involved, continue to use the civic organizations that we have in our community to allow them the opportunity to work and get involved in city government.
Thank you, Mayor Zita. I'll stay with you for our next reader question. It was recently reported that the Summit County Medical Examiner has confirmed more than 100 heroin and fentanyl overdose deaths in 2015. No community, including Norton, is exempt from the current opiate crisis. What are your plans for battling this problem over the next 4 years?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we've discussed that. I've discussed that with the police chief and the fire chief. I know that the response times from our fire department are relatively quick. However, most of the time the police cars are always out on the road, and I know that there was some discussion now, and we've been looking into purchasing the antidote for that. It's a Narcan, a nasal Narcan, that the police departments then will carry. Police officers on patrol will carry and begin to start maybe administering them before the fire department actually arrives on scene. Like I said, response times will be relatively quick. But like I said, there is hopefully we can step up that and do our best to remedy some of that situation.
Thank you. Mr. Rodgers, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. It was recently reported by the Summit County Medical Examiner that there were, it was recently reported that the Summit County Medical Examiner has confirmed more than 100 heroin and fentanyl overdose deaths in 2015. No community, including Norton, is exempt from the current opiate crisis. What are your plans for battling this problem over the next 4 years if you're elected mayor?
You know, I was asked to comment on this by a reporter from another newspaper a while back, and I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. We need to somehow reach our children at unfortunately, we may be too late with a certain age group now. We have to start probably in kindergarten at a young age and express to them the dangers of these things. I know we all say we do it, we do it, we do it, we do it. But heroin now, you know, I grew up in the 60s, as many of you did in this room. We thought those were some wild and crazy times. They were mild. I mean, these drugs these kids are doing today are deadly. They're all over the place, easy to get, cheap. So I don't know that law enforcement can do it. I mean, you can't be everywhere. So I think it's up to the parents, the grandparents, the teachers. We have to educate the youth at the earliest possible age and stay on them and watch them. If you have kids, I know with my kids, I didn't have a problem looking in their rooms, you have to do it today because it's a life or death situation. Narcan works. We used that back when I was working. But you know what? If you're not there, if they walk off into the woods, they get a little high and you're not there, they're gone. Big problem.
Thank you, Mr. Rodgers. I'll stay with you for our next reader question. What is one issue in Norton that you personally feel doesn't receive enough attention, and what do you plan to do to bring it into the spotlight going forward?
What issue in Norton? Okay. Well, one thing, and when I ran, and I wanted, one question that Carl Boone asked me is one thing, what would I like to see change in Norton? And I wanted to get off the front page. And we all know the stories in Norton. I would like people, the outside of Norton, to understand what a great community we have. And this is important. When I moved to Norton, the quiet and the solitude, the peacefulness, when I would actually feel stress relieving as I was getting closer to home. And that's what I want to express to people that may be looking for a place to live. We have a great community. We have great schools. All kinds of awards for the schools. We're building a new high school. We've got a good fire and police department. We need some work on some of our infrastructure, which we're going to do. But if you want to raise a family, or if you want to start a business or bring a business, Norton would be a good place to bring it. And I think we have to celebrate that and sell that.
Thank you. Mayor Zita, would you like me to repeat that?
Yeah, one more time, please.
Oh, absolutely. What is one issue in Norton that you personally feel doesn't receive enough attention, and what do you plan to do to bring it into the spotlight going forward?
Well, I know that we've discussed the flooding issues, and I know that we will continue to work at flooding issues, and like I said, hopefully our plan is to get the Watershed Conservancy District established, and at that point start to mitigate some of the water issues that we have, and like I said, begin to remedy some of that and control some of it in the neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. I'll stay with you, Mayor Zita. This will be our final question from readers, and then we'll open up the floor to any residents who might have a question. Mayor Zita, with a little over 2 months to go until the general election, what would you like voters to consider as they decide for whom to vote?
Yeah, the amount of effort that I try to put in. I know that anybody that knows me knows that I put a lot of effort, a lot of hours in as mayor. I didn't get in it for the money. I got in for, like I said, for the opportunity to make a difference in the city. I said I would do work full time, but in my time that I'm not at work at my full-time job, I am pretty much devoted to the city. And like I said, for those who know me and know that I'm out in the community, not usually much time goes by that I'm not out, whether it's affiliated with school organizations or civic groups or whatever. I try to participate in just about everything that's available to us.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rodgers, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I have.
Okay.
That one. Okay. All right. Thanks. I'm running for the office of mayor because I think I can bring some leadership and some progress to the city. When we took office, and again, and not to be redundant, but we found that most areas of our infrastructure were in great need. And those are the basic needs of the people that are paying the taxes in our community. You know, we can have a half a dozen baseball diamonds. If we have bad roads getting there, if you have bad roads going to your home, I had a resident tell me he couldn't ride his bicycle because of the potholes in the roads, one of these expensive cycles that they ride now. Those are the things that I'm running on. I want to bring back the basic needs to the community of the residents. I want to respect their rights. We need to bring some commercial businesses in. We need to establish a tax base. We can't do it on the backs of the residents. So we need some measured growth. We're going to grow in some areas. We're doing the Cleveland-Masson Road project, and hopefully we'll produce some jobs from new businesses in that area as it goes along. But basically, I want to get the city back to where it should be and take care of the residents.
Okay, we just got a question from our online forum, and I will give this to Mayor Zita first. From Connie Dean. What do you plan to do to address the multiple properties currently in Norton violating codified ordinances in regards to junk vehicles, campers, etc., that create a safety hazard and affect property values?
Yes, we've got a zoning inspector that we've recently hired that we have going out and doing some inspections and trying to make some changes there. He's working diligently in order to address some of those issues that we have facing us and facing the residents in the community.
Mr. Rodgers, would you like me to? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I've responded to a lot of these complaints, and they're legitimate. The problem is, and I don't say this in a unrespectful way, but we live in Norton. Different areas of Norton have different expectations. Now, we do have some that really need addressed, but for lack of a better term, there's somewhat of a country feel to Norton, and I think when you address these issues, you've got to look at it from all angles and make sure. I mean, one size doesn't fit all in this circumstance. So, but yes, we have some areas that need cleaned up. We do have a zoning inspector, a part-time zoning inspector. We're hopefully going to move to a full-time position there and address these even more often.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any residents who have questions for the Norton candidates? Okay, that does it then. Wraps it up. Thank you very much for coming, the candidates, and for everybody who came out and listened. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you next year.